Hi, we're going to read chapter 12 from Island of the Blue Dolphins. Many years before, two whales had washed up on the sandspit. Most of the bones had been taken away to make ornaments, but ribs were still there, half buried in the sand. These I used in making the fence. One by one, I dug them up and carried them to the headland. They were long and curved, and when I had scooped out holes and set them in the earth, they stood taller than I did. I put the ribs together with their edges almost touching, and standing so that they curved outward, which made them impossible to climb. Between them I wove many strands of bull kelp, which shrinks as it dries and pulls very tight. I would have to use seal sinew to bind the ribs together, for this is stronger than kelp, but wild animals like it, and soon would have gnawed the fence down. Much time went into its building. It would have taken me longer, except that the rock made one end of the fence and part of a side. For a place to go in and out, I dug a hole under the fence, just wide and deep enough to crawl through. The bottom and sides I lined with stones. On the outside, I covered the hole with a mat woven of brush to shed the rain, and on the inside with a flat rock, which I was strong enough to move. I was able to take 8 steps between the sides of the fence, which gave me all the room I would need to store the things I gathered and wished to protect. I built the fence first because it was too cold to sleep on the rock, and I did not like to sleep in the shelter I had made until I was safe from the wild dogs. The house took longer to build than the fence, because it rained many days and because the wood which I needed was scarce. So remember, their island doesn't have a lot of trees on it, so there's not a good supply of wood. And also, what wood there is, you probably want to use for other things that are more important than a house. There was a legend among our people that the island had once been covered with tall trees. This was a long time ago, at the beginning of the world, when Tumayawit and Mukot ruled. The two gods quarreled about many things. Tumayawit wished people to die. Mukot did not. Tumayawit angrily went down to another world under this world, taking his belongings with him, so people die because he did. In that time there were tall trees, but now there were only a few in the ravines, and these were small and crooked. It was very hard to find one that would make a good pole. I searched many days, going out early in the morning and coming back at night, before I found enough for the house. I used the rock for the back of the house, and the front I left open since the wind did not blow from this direction. The poles I made of equal length, using fire to cut them, as well as a stone knife, which caused me much difficulty because I had never made such a tool before. There were 4 poles on each side set in the earth, and twice that many for the roof. These I bound together with sinew and covered with female kelp, which has broad leaves. The winter was half over before I finished the house, but I slept there every night and felt secure because of the strong fence. The foxes came when I was cooking my food and stood outside gazing through the cracks, and the wild dogs also came, gnawing at the whale ribs, growling because they could not get in. I shot 2 of them, but not the leader. While I was building the fence in the house, I ate shellfish and perch, which I cooked on a flat rock. Afterwards I made 2 utensils. Along the shore there were stones that the sea had worn smooth. Most of them were round, but I found 2 with hollow places in the center, which I deepened and broadened by rubbing them with sand. Using these to cook in, I saved the juices of the fish, which are good and were wasted before. For cooking seeds and roots, I wove a tight basket of fine reeds, which was easy because I had learned how to do it from my sister Ulape. After the basket had dried in the sun, I gathered lumps of pitch on the shore, softened them over the fire, and rubbed them on the inside of the basket so that it would hold water. So, lots of California tribes they all wove baskets. You guys are going to weave baskets with me. We're going to figure out how to do it, even if we're still in quarantine. And one of the things that Native California tribes would do is they would get pitch. Pitch is tar, and it comes up out of the crust underwater, and it also can come out of the crust on land. And it's kind of oily and greasy, and what they would do is they would spread it inside their baskets so that they could put water in their baskets and they wouldn't leak. They also put pitch inside so they could put food inside their baskets, and it wouldn't stick. So she's looking for pitch. She's probably finding it near the water. I don't know if many of you have been down to Los Angeles or San Diego area, even Santa Barbara. There is a lot of pitch that is along the beaches. And sometimes, I remember once when I was a little kid, we were at the beach down in Los Angeles, and I remember getting tar on my foot, and it was very sticky, and I couldn't get it off, and then sand got stuck to the tar, and I was crying. I was a little crybaby about it because it really hurt. I had to pull the tar off my foot. It was very sticky. So it kind of washes inland out of the water. And so if you're living on an island, there's probably tar that's in the crust around your island, and the tar's gonna wash up onto your island. Pitch was really popular, so sometimes it got traded, because you could line your canoe with it and make your canoe so it wouldn't leak, right? So a lot of tribes traded pitch with other tribes. If you didn't live somewhere where there was pitch, you didn't have to worry because other tribes would trade you something they didn't have for pitch. Let's see. I gathered lumps of pitch on the shore, softened them over the fire, and rubbed them on the inside of the basket so that it would hold water. By heating small stones and dropping them into a mixture of water and seeds in the basket, I could make gruel. I made a place for fire in the floor of my house, hollowing it out and lining it with rocks. In the village of Galastat, we made new fires every night, but now I made one fire which I covered with ashes when I went to bed. The next night I would remove the ashes and blow on the embers. In this way I saved myself much work. There were many gray mice on the island, and now that I had food to keep from one meal to the other, I needed a safe place to put it. On the face of the rock, which was the back wall of my house, were several cracks as high as my shoulder. These I cut out and smoothed to make shelves where I could store my food and the mice could not reach it. By the time winter was over and grass began to show green on the hills, my house was comfortable. I was sheltered from the wind and rain and prowling animals. I could cook anything I wished to eat. Everything I wanted was there at hand. It was now time to make plans for getting rid of the wild dogs, which had killed my brother and would kill me should they ever come upon me unarmed. I needed another and heavier spear, also a larger bow and sharper arrows. To collect the material for these weapons, I searched the whole island, taking many suns to do it. This left only the nights to work on them. Since I could not see well by the dim fire I used for cooking, I made lamps of the dried bodies of little fish, which we call sai. I think what she's meaning, there's a fish called grunion that we have in California, and it's a little small fish. It's almost like a sardine. It's very oily, like the fish has lots of oil in it. And so this fish she's going to kill the fish, and then she's just going to light them on fire, and they burn because they're so oily. They make little lamps. Their little bodies become lamps. The sai is the color of silver and not much bigger than a finger. On nights when the moon shines full, these little fish come swimming out of the sea in schools, so thick that you can almost walk on them. They come with the waves and twist and turn on the sand as if they were dancing. She could mean sardines too. She could be describing sardines because sardines are about as long as your finger and they're silver. I caught many basketfuls of sai and I put them out in the sun. Hung up by their tails from the poles of the roof, they made much odor, but they burned with a very clear light. I made the bow and arrows first, and I was pleased when I tried them that I could shoot farther and much straighter than I had before. The spear I left to the last. I wondered as I smoothed and shaped the long handle and fitted a stone collar around the end, both to give the spear weight and to hold the spear point, if I could make this point the way the men of our tribe did from the tooth of a sea elephant. Many nights I thought about it, wondering how I could possibly kill one of these great beasts. I could not use a net of kelp because that needed the strength of several men. nor could I remember that a bull elephant had ever been killed with an arrow or with a spear. Only after they had been caught in a net were they killed, and then with a club. We killed many cows for their oil using spears, but the teeth were not large. How I would do this I did not know. Yet the more I thought about it, the greater was my determination to try, for there was nothing to be found on the island that made such good spear points as the tusk like teeth of the sea bull elephant. So, a lot of California tribes had a rock called obsidian. Obsidian is a volcanic rock. It's black, it's shiny, and you can flake it away. It's also really sharp. And so, when you're flaking it, you have to be really careful. Um, so, a lot of tribes used obsidian for their spear points. She's in a place where there isn't any obsidian. And if she lived on mainland California, obsidian got traded as well. Like you might, if you lived near where there was obsidian, you might trade for meat, or you might trade for pitch, or you might trade a basket or two for some obsidian to make spear points. It was considered to be very valuable. The obsidian is only going to be located, of course, near where there are volcanoes. So most of the obsidian was up in northern California, like up near Oregon, where there's lots of volcanic activity. I'm not sure there was very much obsidian down near Southern California. I think most of it was up in Northern California. But tribes traded it, so it would travel all across California because nothing made better spear points than obsidian. All right, we will stop right there. I hope you enjoyed chapter 12. And I hope you're glad that Karana has found some happiness by making her island home and by wanting to live there. And instead of being somebody who's camping and who's temporarily living on the island, instead she's made the island her home. She's settled in and she feels comfortable and happy. And we will stop right there. See you next time.